An empty blind date turned incredible when this little girl revealed a heartwarming truth. Jake stared at the empty seat across from him, a glaring anomaly in the otherwise bustling diner. The checkered tablecloth felt oddly accusatory beneath his fingers, and he couldn't shake the pressure sitting in his chest. The blind date his sister had arranged felt more like a circus performance than the romantic escape she envisioned. Just weeks ago, he'd been ridiculed for his work being cut back at the firm, the thought of failure twisting in his gut like a knife. Emotions clamored for attention, insecurity battling the logical part of him that called for patience. Was he really about to sit here like a lonely ghost, waiting for someone who might never come? A buzzing uncertainty pulled at him should he leave? As those thoughts spiraled, a wave of isolation crashed over him, each crash echoing his fears about his career and future. A lawyer without a stable position, what a joke. He used to tell himself he was not just another cog in the wheel of corporate law, he had aspirations, ideals. But every downsize trimmed those dreams a little smaller, compressed them among the law books and paperwork that seemed to define his existence. Yet he couldn't escape this blind date. His sister had set it up because she believed in the version of Jake before the pressure of his profession had worn away his confidence. And in this moment, that belief felt painfully misplaced. Amidst his spiraling thoughts, the door swung open and a burst of laughter shattered his reverie. A little girl no more than 6 entered the diner, her face lit with an infectious delight. Bright pink apron on, a small hand wrapped snugly around her grandfather's. The room shifted. For a moment, Jake forgot his own troubles. The child was vibrantly alive, twirling and skimming the floor like she was kissed by sunshine itself. Lily, her grandfather called, chuckling. You can't visit the bakery without your goodies. Jake watched, captivated. She strapped her small feet to the ground, eyes round with anticipation. I have cupcakes. She chimed, and the world softened around her words. She was on a mission. Her plan to melt the heart of their recently widowed neighbor through the joys of homemade sweets sounded endearing, selfless. It reminded him of softer days, before his focus had narrowed to billable hours and legal jargon. Just as he allowed a smile to form, commotion erupted. Lily's cupcakes had gone missing. The promise of joy vanished into thin air, leaving only her wide eyes, shimmering with anxiety. It was such a trivial matter, yet faced with her earnest pleading, Jake felt an unfamiliar tug. Could he help? He hadn't volunteered in ages. The pull of her innocence, her delightful dreams, awakened memories buried deep within his heart. Between his professional misgivings and her single-minded optimism, there were stark contrasts that ignited a strange hope within him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. He found himself enveloped in a whimsical quest, all thoughts of his blind date fading as he traversed the diner, joining Lily in her cupcake scavenger hunt. She gleefully instructed him to check beneath tables, behind the counter, her faith unyielding. In learning about her aspirations of opening a bakery, he discovered pieces of himself that had been swallowed by old expectations. As they tumbled through this unexpected adventure, laughter erupted, each stumble tracing tiny fractures in his weariness. But what if they found the cupcakes? Would it simply validate their trivial pursuit, or would it unlock something deeper inside him? Chaos reigned as Lily continued to share her dreams unabashedly, and he reluctantly began to question his own. Was he destined to remain tethered to feelings of inadequacy and resignation? As the clock ticked far past 8 and his initial burden hung thick, Jake took a deep breath. Could the cupcake thief be a reminder of his own bitterness, someone simply searching for sweetness in their life? He embraced that tension between innocence and life's complexities, drawn unwaveringly towards Lily and the possibilities that lay ahead. Questions loomed larger than ever. Could he choose a different path, one that sparkled with spontaneity rather than suffocation? In this moment, clarity felt imminent but elusive, teasing him with the prospect of new beginnings. The diner buzzed around him, but Jake's world had shrunk to a narrow focus. Lily's bright eyes, wide with wonder, and the absence of her cupcakes. Unbothered by his earlier worries, he embraced her enthusiasm, allowing it to flow through him, gradually softening the edges of his self-doubt. As they searched, laughter bubbled between them like soda fizzing in a glass. Jake felt an odd sense of companionship in their shared mission. Each nonsensical idea flitted from Lily's mouth, checking the kitchen, asking other diners, even contemplating the possibility of a mischievous raccoon swooping in and swiping the treats. As she chatted animatedly, Jake couldn't ignore how her innocence illuminated the drab shadows he had carried for too long. His gut, once twisted by insecurity, now found a glimmer of clarity. He discovered a newfound affection for spontaneity as he hustled alongside her, passing tables adorned with half-eaten meals and distracted patrons. A thought flickered unbidden in his mind. What was it about this child that seemed to inject life back into his weary soul? The hunt continued, transforming from a desperate search into a delightful escapade. When they finally poked their heads into the bakery corner of the diner, a cozy nook, smelling of butter and sugar, Jake was struck by a thought. He had once dreamed of being an advocate for the underdogs, championing the small guys, those overlooked by the system. Now, he found himself helping this little girl reclaim her joy, reviving perhaps his own as well, but beneath the surface of their fun lingered a tension, a sharp edge of realization. Lily's desperate quest for her lost cupcakes mirrored Jake's own search for purpose. Just last week, he felt his career slipping away, and now he was here, chasing frosting and sprinkles. Had he lost track of himself among the daily grind, forgotten what made him truly alive? With each new idea sprouting from Lily's imagination, he felt invigorated. Jake began to question, was he only navigating this bustling world, or could he dare to craft his own path? In a moment of daring, he proposed that they set up a small bake sale. Maybe he could help her sell cupcakes, raise money for a local charity, and in doing so, rekindle something that had been lost in his life, a sense of contribution and connection that transcended mere profit margins. Lily's face lit up at the suggestion. We could make even more cupcakes, she squealed, clapping her hands vigorously. As they made plans to enlist the help of other patrons, the atmosphere shifted around him. When he glanced up, eyes met his, curious, interested, even inspired. In the faces of those who overheard his proposal, he sensed a spark, as if collective creativity ignited. Maybe they could all join in, turning this trivial adventure into something greater, something that could rekindle the community spirit he didn't even realize he'd been missing. But as the proposition hung in the air, doubt crept in. Was he just a lawyer gone mad, dreaming of bake sales and cupcakes? Shouldn't he be strategizing legal pathways instead of piecing together sugar and flour? The world of litigation had molded him, but what if he stepped out of those shadowy confines? Jake's heart thudded. Could he risk shifting his identity? Discomfort tightened his chest again as he battled the fear of detaching from his profession. The tension swelled, an onslaught threatening to unravel him just as the bright possibilities began to bloom. Let us find those cupcakes first, he said, shaking off the hesitation for a moment that stretched painfully long. Then we'll add more layers to this idea. The urgency to act mingled with uncertainty, and he felt poised at a precipice. What would come next? As the search resumed, his mind buzzed with anticipation. Could this journey expand further than Lily's initial dream, reshaping his own sense of self? The timer of change had started, and Jake hardly knew the outcome, yet the tantalizing prospect of a transformation lingered on the horizon. He simply had to make one more choice. What would his leap entail? The thought weighed on him: step into whimsy and risk, or return to the safety of his legal life. In the pivotal moment of rediscovery, the urgency pressed on. The cupcakes were still out there, and so was his true calling. Would he finally embrace it? Jake's footsteps quickened as he and Lily ventured deeper into the diner, urgency propelling them forward. The tantalizing scent of baked goods wafting from the kitchen pushed them on, but the cupcake quest began to feel more profound than satisfying a sweet tooth. Each clerk they spoke to, every patron they approached, became part of a story that was taking shape, one where he could reclaim pieces of himself he'd long forgotten. That he felt the first stirrings of his creative side make an appearance, a dormant talent emerging from the shadows behind his structured lawyer persona. A spontaneous bake sale was just a starting point, but it glittered with the possibility of something more meaningful, a bridge back to community, connection, the thrill of actually doing something rather than waiting for permission. Yet the internal war raged on, an echo of his former life reminding him of the defined path he had walked for so long. "Let's check the fridge," Lily exclaimed, tugging at his sleeve, swirling him back into the present. She was pure energy, delighting in the chase, and that unfiltered enthusiasm was something Jake hadn't felt in years. With renewed focus, he guided her toward the back of the diner, where the clinking of pans and muted conversation hinted at a potential cupcake discovery. They halted outside the swinging kitchen doors, and Jake felt the adrenaline rush through him. Something about the shared anticipation captured him. In this moment, he realized he wanted to be more than just an observer in life. "Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2." He glanced down at Lily, whose eyes sparkled with anticipation. 3. They pushed through the doors, and his eyes darted around the bustling kitchen. Before them, staff bustled about, arms laden with trays, most importantly, a few frosted cupcakes among the heaps of sugary delights. If they could only catch the attention of someone behind the counter. Jake hesitated, words tangling in his throat. What if he simply made a request? Could he really step out of his high-pressure world of negotiation into this moment of exuberance? Lily, undeterred by his uncertainty, practically leaped into action. "Excuse me," she shouted, her voice cutting through the kitchen clamor. "We're looking for cupcakes. Did any escape out here?" Laughter erupted, drawing the attention of a pastry chef whose blue apron seemed like a badge of honor in this adventurous arena. "You looking for the lost cupcakes, little friend?" Jake observed as amusement cascaded around them. How refreshing it felt to be swept up in this joy, even if it left him feeling vulnerable. The chef smiled down at Lily, a warmth radiating from him, beckoning them closer. "You've come to the right place. We have a few left. Want to taste?" The invitation sank in, and for a moment, Jake's tightly guarded sense of professionalism slipped away. As Lily chirped her delighted agreement, he realized the sheer bliss of living in this moment, rather than in his head. But the fleeting happiness was punctured by the ever-looming question, who was he now? Was he a lawyer exploring uncharted territory, or had he just become a guide for a little girl on an unexpected mission? The uncertainty brewed within him as the cupcake samples were distributed. Each frosted bite became a revelation, tasting not only of sugar but of possibility. As they savored the treats, the thought crept back, could his life meld both joy and professionalism? The weight of titles no longer felt as solid, perhaps an amalgamation of both worlds awaited him. "Don't worry, Mr. Jake," Lily chimed, her sweet, innocent voice wrapping around him like a warm hug. "You can be a cupcake lawyer. You save cupcakes and you save people." He chuckled, yet the sincerity in her words struck a chord deep within him. Could that be the answer he sought, mixing together the layers of his past with flavors of spontaneity? As the last bite melted away, the electric charge of an answer felt tantalizingly close, but just as he opened his mouth to respond, a shadow loomed at the corner of the kitchen. A reflection of doubt smirked at him, the specter of his old life creeping back to remind him of the comfort of certainty. Meanwhile, Lily looked up, wide-eyed with expectation. "Can we bake more tomorrow?" she questioned hopefully, the spark of their venture igniting again. The moment hung thick with tension, leaving Jake at a crossroads. The specter's taunt pulsated in his chest. Would he dare revisit the edges of unfamiliarity, or retreat into the sanctuary of a defined role? Then, with Lily's hopeful gaze anchored upon him, he felt compelled to stretch the boundaries of who he believed himself to be. "Let's plan it," he decided, the words spilling forth with conviction, freshly mingled with fear and excitement. As they emerged back into the diner, the weight of the choice ahead remained potent. A leap into uncertainty awaited. Would he stand tall and face the doubt, or withdraw once again into familiar shadows? The answer lingered tantalizingly, a promise of fresh beginnings waiting to be uncovered. The next day had arrived with a haze of both excitement and apprehension hanging over Jake. As sunlight streamed through his kitchen window, illuminating a half-hearted stack of legal documents, his thoughts drifted back to the diner. The echoes of laughter, the enticing aroma of baked goods, and Lily's hopeful smile consumed his mind. It had been just a taste of something new, but now it was more than curiosity, it was a burgeoning hunger for change, the kind that made his chest tighten and his heart race that he picked up the mixing bowl, the ceramic cool against his palm, and realized the contrast between its capabilities and his life as a lawyer. It was simple, a tool to create rather than dissect. As he stirred, the rhythmic motion began to soothe the swirling doubts within him. Baking, he thought, was an act of creation, a chance to transform raw ingredients into something delightful. Wasn't that the essence of wanting to reclaim his creativity? The phone broke his reverie, vibrating with urgency. Instinctively, he reached for it, his professional demeanor snapping back into place. It was a client, a dispute requiring immediate attention. Pushing the mixing bowl aside felt like a betrayal. Already the professional facade sought to pull him back into the suffocating routine he'd just begun to question. Jake. We need to finalize the settlement, his client's voice crackled through the line, rife with anxiety. Of course, he replied, the words forming robotically as he leaned against the counter. He could almost hear the remnants of frosting from yesterday's treats whispering for acknowledgement, recollections that begged to be prioritized. After hanging up, he paused, staring out the window at the world outside. Quick-paced city life unfolded beneath him, with people bustling to their destinations, each seemingly driven by purpose. A clash within him raged just as intensely. Could he redefine his purpose without abandoning his current responsibilities? He took a deep breath and shook it off, fatigue setting in as waves of longing washed over him. The kitchen's alluring chaos called to him, an invitation to experiment, and with each pulse of his heart, the idea sparked anew. What if he built a plan that blended creativity with his legal acumen? A program that not only spread joy through baking but also fostered community, each cupcake weighed with care and crafted for a cause. Hours passed in a blip as he gathered supplies, jotting down a framework. He realized that the journey with Lily was more than a mere bake sale. It was an exploration of a delightful contradiction to his buttoned-up life. Could the act of baking become a form of advocacy? The thought ignited a fierce passion in him, steering away from the ghost of his previous life. Moments later, he was on his way to the diner, his heart racing with determination. What would it feel like to merge the two facets of his identity? The adrenaline surged through him, questions layered everywhere, like the frosting on a cupcake, each one signifying a choice he could make. Upon arriving, he spotted Lily, her spirit beaming with the unfiltered joy that such innocence brings. She waved him down, her infectious enthusiasm igniting the last remnants of his trepidation. Mr. Jake. Are we really going to bake? She yelled with excitement, hopping on her toes. A grin, a genuine, unguarded expression pulled at his lips. We are. But I have a new idea. Her eyes widened, hope spinning a delicious tapestry of potential, reflecting back what he felt inside. Amid the laughter and the kitchen's bustling energy, Jake felt the first tangible stirrings of realization settling in. He was ready to act, to embrace both worlds weaving together into something that belonged to him. The specter of self-doubt momentarily dissipated, replaced by the thrill of being more than a lawyer. Let us save cupcakes and people, he declared, the statement feeling as bold as the frosting on 10 cupcakes stacked high, but as the words hung in the air, a flicker of uncertainty caught his breath. Something deep inside whispered that he might be stepping outside the boundaries of what he had known for so long. Could he navigate this new path where both art and law existed? The question loomed heavy, ready to launch him into unfamiliar territory. Would he be prepared? The kitchen buzzed around him, the weight of his decision growing palpable. Tomorrow was a blank slate, full of potential. But what if it turned out to be a daunting canvas instead? The clarity of his resolve faltered as he considered the specter of failure lurking just out of sight. Jake's heart began to race anew. Tomorrow wouldn't just offer an opportunity to bake, it would set the stage for a confrontation he wasn't quite ready for. The looming declaration hung in balance, teasing his sense of self. Would he dare uncover the truth hidden beneath the frosting? The morning light crept in through the kitchen window, casting soft shadows over the countertops as Jake prepared for the day ahead. His heart still echoed with the commitment he had made the previous evening. It was exhilarating and terrifying at once, a leap toward a future he could barely envision yet desperately craved. He moved with purpose, gathering his thoughts while running his fingers over the list he had scribbled, ideas bouncing in his mind like vibrations off the wall. The outline he had devised took shape, crisp and tangible. He envisioned a series of baking sessions paired with community engagement, where each culinary endeavor would raise awareness for local needs. The sound of children laughing at the diner replayed in his mind, blending harmoniously with a sense of intention. There was potential here, not just the act of baking but an opportunity to connect with people in a way his law career had never allowed. Still, doubt nagged at him. Was diving headfirst into this uncharted territory truly the answer? His practical side, trained through years of meticulous legal work, urged caution. This is not the law, that quiet voice inside warned. Yet, what if the law was precisely what he could cultivate as a vehicle for this creativity? He spent the morning sketching more detailed plans, thoroughly mapping out each baking session. He envisioned music filling the air, laughter and friendship mingling with the scent of fresh cookies. But even as excitement flickered through him, the reality of work loomed heavy. A meeting at the office followed by client reports awaited him, a stark contrast to the warmth of his kitchen. The dial of his professional identity snapped into place as he entered the legal firm, the familiar hum of the office settling over him like a thick fog. As he carefully navigated through papers and meetings, something unexpected brewed within him. Each time he closed a case, the sense of accomplishment faded before the ink dried, replaced by a longing for change that was becoming increasingly insistent. Midway through the day, he received a call from a high-stakes client, a figure whose threat implied desirable but morally ambiguous outcomes. The request twisted in his gut an inference toward manipulation disguised as savvy negotiation. The chasm between the world of law and the world waiting for him at the diner widened with every passing moment. That's not a problem, Jake. Just make sure we get the upper hand, his client had said, a casual dismissal tinged with arrogance that he hung up the phone, staring blankly at the stacks of legal documents before him. There was a stark realization: success in law would not fill the growing void in his heart, especially if it came at the expense of his values. He was spiraling into discontent and uncertainty, dangerously close to a precipice he didn't know he had been standing upon. Jake's resolve had to solidify. What if he approached this client with an alternative? To educate them about integrity blended with strategy. Rather than acquiescing to unethical demands, could he redirect the conversation toward collaboration? With a determined heartbeat, he began crafting potential responses, envisioning not just a negotiation but a meaningful dialogue. He could utilize his unique framework, blending creativity with hard-nosed legal acumen. Each word he formed brought a flicker of the light he felt in the kitchen, yet, even as he pored over his notes, he felt the duality of his life lawyer and baker waging war within him. As the clock ticked down, a small voice echoed in his heart. It urged him not just to take the leap into the unknown but to own it. Tomorrow, he would meet Lily again, pushing beyond the simple act of baking. It would be his first step into the future he yearned for, facing the crooks of his own uncertainties head-on while working to illuminate a path replete with fresh opportunities. But beneath that anticipation lingered an unsettling question: would he really have the courage to confront not only his clients but himself? As Jake stared at those unfamiliar notes, the tension grew, igniting a spark of self-doubt that he felt he could no longer ignore. The time was near for his pivotal conversation, and as he weighed the ramifications, he realized that this time, amid frosting and flour, he would not just be creating baked goods, but reshaping his destiny itself. The confrontation loomed ahead, daring him to face the deeper truth within. Would he stumble when the moment arrived? Was he truly ready to uncover not just what lay beneath the frosting, but the layers of his own character? The day dawned with a crisp bite in the air, the kind of chill that invigorated Jake's spirit amidst the heaviness of his thoughts. He had made a decision, one that seemed almost radical against the backdrop of his carefully cultivated legal career. There was a chance, an opportunity to entwine his innate creativity with the steady backbone of the law. But the risk lay in self-discovery, peeling back layers of ingrained identity and diving into the unknown. With each passing hour until his meeting with Lily, anxiety seeped through the veneer of his professional demeanor. He shuffled between the conference room and his office, unable to shake the gnawing feeling that today would mark a crossroads. Would he stand firm in his resolve, or would the familiar patterns of conformity ensnare him once more? During a break, he took a moment to breathe, a deep inhale that filled his lungs with fresh resolve. At his desk, papers sprawled out like an unruly jigsaw puzzle. He sought focus. He began typing notes for his client conversation, infusing practicality with a touch of human compassion, a blend of strategy and authenticity. Each keystroke echoed his determination, his desire to transcend the rigid confines of typical legal discourse. This wasn't just a negotiation, it was a redefinition of what it meant to be a lawyer. He envisioned Lily's laughter mixing with the sweetness of the batter, her innocent perspective illuminating the cold precision of his legal work. She had a way of seeing the world that was vivid and unrestrained. With her, it wasn't just about baking. It was about people, engagement, and forging a community through understanding ideas that were once foreign to his practice but now felt intimately familiar. As the clock struck 3, seconds turned to moments and time stretched like dough under his fingers. Jake's anticipation coiled tighter, each tick a reminder of the doubts that whispered insidiously at the edges of his mind. When the meeting room door swung open, revealing the polished facade of his client, a man draped in casual authority, Jake felt his heart race. What had begun as mere spreadsheets and billing statements transformed into a battleground for integrity. "Jake, good to see you," the client said, his voice smooth, but Jake could sense the underlying current of expectation. "Likewise," Jake replied, summoning a confidence he didn't fully believe. He gripped the edge of the table, grounding himself. "But I'd like to discuss an alternative approach to our strategy." He paused, weighing the reactions of the room. His voice steadied with conviction. "I believe we can achieve our goals without sacrificing our ethical standards. There's a path forward where collaboration trumps manipulation." The man's brow furrowed, confusion ascending briefly before insult cascaded into dismissiveness. "You realize that's not how this business works, right?" "You want?" Jake cut him off, the fire igniting within him. "I want to redefine how it works. I'm not merely here to play the game but to reshape the narrative." The client's gaze sharpened, assessing the truth behind Jake's words. Jake took a breath, remembering Lily's uninhibited joy while kneading dough, her innocent ambition merging with his own. "It's about creating relationships rather than transactions. You'll see greater returns, both ethically and financially." As silence blanketed the room, daring the client to respond, uncertainty flooded Jake. But within that uncertainty lay a nervous thrill. Had he just taken a step toward a new identity? When the meeting concluded, Jake stepped out into the bustling hallway, the air heavy with tension and possibility. He felt lighter yet more grounded, as if he were straddling the edge between his past and an uncharted future. With each passing moment, the thought of baking with Lily drew nearer, a tantalizing prospect of genuine connection. But as he made his way to the diner, a chilling thought flickered to life. What if his gamble on transparency would lead to a fractured relationship with his client, unraveling everything he had worked for? Would he truly find the courage to embrace this new form of advocacy, or would the fear of loss draw him back to the shadows of his former self? Uncertainty surged, propelling him forward into the unknown, ready to confront what came next. The diner's neon sign buzzed above Jake's head, an iridescent glow bathing the sidewalk in hues of electric blue and fuchsia. The familiar scent of fresh coffee and fried batter wafted outside, but he scarcely registered it amidst the cacophony of his thoughts. Jake pushed through the door, his heart racing, anticipation mingling with a familiar pang of uncertainty. This meeting promised warmth and affection, yet he couldn't shake the foreboding feeling that accompanied his newfound commitment to integrity. Lily sat at their usual table, her small form engulfed by a massive vinyl booth. Her dark curls framed her face as she diligently scribbled on a napkin, seemingly lost in her creative world. As he approached, her attention flickered up, and she beamed him a radiant smile. That smile, so genuine, momentarily dissipated the turmoil swirling in his chest. "Jake, want to help me create a new recipe?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. He slid into the booth, needing a moment to collect himself. "What are you working on?" he inquired, attempting to mirror her joy, even as doubt threaded through him. "It's a chocolate chip cookie, but with an orange twist." "I thought it might be different," she responded, her pensiveness contrasted sharply with his own. He laughed softly, the sound breaking through a tension he hadn't realized was coiling around him. "That sounds amazing. Let's put our heads together and make it happen." As he listened to her describe the process, Jake was struck by her unabashed creativity. It was so free of pretense, so unguarded. He thought about how he had entered the meeting earlier, shielded by the armor of professionalism, but now, surrounded by Lily's innocent ambition, he felt cracks forming in that facade. She reminded him of the very essence he aspired to embody, a blend of authenticity and relational understanding, not governed by the fear of failure. "Jake, I was thinking," she began, her small brow furrowing in concentration. "If we make the cookies for the whole neighborhood, everyone might be super happy. What do you think?" The idea lingered in Jake's heart, echoing the inklings of connection he yearned for in his professional life. It was simple, an act of kindness, a gesture that required no intricate legal dance. He considered the notion, the excitement in her voice feeding into his own aspirations for a community built on sincerity. "Why not?" he said, a newfound determination swelling within him. "Let us bake cookies and share them. It'll be our little project." But just then, a shadow flickered in his mind. The impending fallout with his client loomed ominously, reminding him that bending the rules even subtly could spark repercussions. Would he be able to cultivate relationships without succumbing to the demands of a skewed system? "Lily," he said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "You know how sometimes people don't see what's right in front of them? Adults can get lost in things that don't really matter, and they forget to connect with one another." "Oh," she replied, her forehead crinkling. "But isn't it our job to help them find that again?" "Yes," he affirmed, feeling an unexpected swell of pride in her insight. Could this child be the catalyst for his evolution? Could her perspective transform the way he approached his practice? Their conversation drifted, filled with laughter and spontaneity, but a creeping doubt clawed at his conscience. As they discussed frosting options and decorating techniques, Jake couldn't help but wonder if he possessed the courage to transform his professional identity just as thoroughly as he encouraged Lily to unleash her creativity. With each cookie, his purpose crystallized further, yet the specter of his client's reaction put a cautious damper on his excitement. The internal strife gripped him tightly, heightening the stakes of his newfound vision. In the midst of laughter, Jake glanced at Lily, who picked up a pen to draw a fantastical cookie monster. She was completely oblivious to the internal battle raging within him. Jake took a deep breath, both invigorated by her spirit and paralyzed by the fear of not meeting expectations in his dual life. What was the next step? The time had come to face the contradictions within himself. Would he continue to forge this new path, embrace his evolving identity, or would he retreat into the shadows and allow uncertainty to silence this budding rebellion? The scent of possibility filled the air as he stared at Lily's artistry taking shape, each stroke a vibrant challenge to the status quo. The following day, Jake awoke to the sunlight streaming through his window, illuminating the scattered remnants of his thoughts from the previous evening. The ethereal glow of his dreams seemed to cast a beacon on the sculpted journey he faced, a road riddled with tension between the conventional expectations of his profession and the heartfelt aspirations he began to nurture, especially through Lily's innocent enthusiasm. As he prepared for work, he replayed their conversation about the cookies in his mind, recognizing the transformative power of simplicity. This realization strengthened his resolve, but lurking beneath was the gnawing anxiety about confronting his client. Could he risk his ideals by remaining true to his growing conviction of kindness and community? Arriving at the office, the ambience was thick with the usual office chatter, a backdrop of sterile efficiency. Colleagues moved about in sharp suits, exchanging numbers and analyzing strategies that felt detached from the warmth he craved. Yet, even as the typical scene unfolded, Jake felt a newfound sense of purpose bubbling within him. "Hey, Jake!" A voice called from across the room, breaking his reverie. It was Max, his supervisor, a man steeped in the rigidity of corporate law. "Got a minute?" "Sure," Jake responded, steeling himself for yet another routine meeting that held the potential to derail his silent rebellion. As they entered the conference room, Jake sensed Max's growing impatience. Their discussion quickly veered into the nuances of an upcoming case, a challenging negotiation that would test Jake's limits. For a moment, the acrid taste of dread lingered in the air. What if he compromised his integrity to follow Max's unyielding methodology? "Remember, Jake," Max said, his tone clipping the air like a whip. "It's about winning. Make sure you have your game face on. No soft emotions." "Emotions?" Jake chuckled internally, recalling Lily's unfiltered creativity. Perhaps it was time to rewrite the narrative. Max presented a narrative devoid of human connection. Drawing from their cookie project, he contemplated how an infusion of warmth and sincerity could transform the legal landscape traditionally veiled in strategy and pressure. Actually, Max, he ventured, surprising himself with his boldness. I think we could approach this case from a more relational standpoint. Finding common ground might help us secure a win that counts. Max's brow furrowed, and silence loomed heavy in the room. Jake's heart raced as he recognized the shift unfolding. He realized he was no longer just a cog filtering through another's expectations. Instead, he was channeling a new direction, liberated from conventional constraints. I understand your point, Max replied slowly, skepticism etching his features. But we need to play hardball. You can't be emotional in this line of work. Jake's insides tightened, the tug-of-war escalating within him. Yet the determination he felt last night surged back, an echo of Lily's untainted vision reminding him of what truly mattered. Compassion was not a liability but a new metric of success. What if he was the voice that shifted their approach? Playing hardball hasn't always served us the best, Jake countered. What if our next step could include understanding the client's needs, fully connecting with them, instead of just exploiting the weaknesses of the opponent? We could create a deal that fosters trust. Max's eyes narrowed, tension crackling in the air. The risk lay bare. Jake was challenging the status quo, a significant shift in an environment that thrived on competition. The room felt stifling, even as a flicker of hope ignited within him. Was he truly ready to step into this space of vulnerability? Guests arrived for the case meeting. As he engaged in abstracts and negotiations with the client, Jake found himself surreptitiously weaving threads of warmth into the dialogue, observing how they reacted favorably when human connection was injected into the cold legal jargon. For the first time, they genuinely listened. The rigid atmosphere began to thaw, and with it, Jake seized a glimpse of what his professional life could evolve into, a career supplemented by both strategy and genuine connection, one that didn't compromise his ideals. As Jake left the meeting room, adrenaline coursed through him. There lay a balance to be struck, a new approach waiting to be honed. Yet the facade of doubt still lingered, and the complexities of what lay ahead held a weight he could feel pressing against his chest. Could he maintain this trajectory amidst the relentless demands of his profession? Would the winds of change truly shift, or would he be swept back into an indifference of the past? At home, the stillness of the evening echoed with sorting out his thoughts, but clarity was ominous. The cookies, the new path, the conversation with Max all danced in his mind like vibrant sketches awaiting completion. He stared at his calendar, the date for a follow-up meeting looming ahead. A reminder of everything that could challenge his resolve. What would his choice be when the time came for his ideals to clash with the powerful yearning for acceptance in a system that thrived on conflict? The sun rose the next morning with an unyielding intensity, flooding Jake's apartment with a warmth that felt both promising and suffocating. He lingered over breakfast, uneasily sifting through his thoughts, reflecting on the previous day's confrontation with Max and its repercussions. The doubt gnawed at him: was he strong enough to embrace this new vision, or would the oppressive tide of corporate indifference drag him back to safe shores? His commute felt interminable, the familiar cityscape now resonating with an unusual vibrancy he hadn't noticed before. Every busker on the corner, every passerby engaged in laughter, echoed Lily's spirit, drumming up a slow cadence of hope within him. Jake realized he had a choice. He could allow the monotony of his surroundings to dictate his mood or actively cultivate the warmth he craved. Upon arriving at the office, the air was dense with anxiety and ambition. Jake's heart raced as he approached Max's desk, a mix of anticipation and fear propelling him forward. The follow-up meeting was just hours away, and despite his growing resolve, a curtain of skepticism hung between him and the project's success. Ready for today? Max asked, his exterior as hard as ever. Jake sensed the ambivalence lurking just beneath Max's brusque demeanor. A flicker of irritation danced in his eyes whenever discussions veered towards emotional strategies. Actually, I've been thinking. Jake began, surprising even himself as he dared to challenge the power dynamic once more. What if we incorporated a more human element into our approach? It might resonate with the client. Max's expression hardened, a familiar mask slipping back into place. We don't have time for that, Jake. Stick to what sells. Emotional appeal doesn't win contracts. A tense silence enveloped them, and Jake felt the pressure mounting. This was where the rubber met the road. Would he surrender to the rote responses blurring his creativity, or hold his ground? As thoughts swirled in his mind, Jake recalled his thrilling realization from yesterday: the clients responded positively to empathy. Deciding not to retreat into silence, he pressed on, heart pounding. Maybe if we show them the value of trust, they will choose to work with us. We want something genuine, not just a contract. This is a partnership. Max's jaw clenched, and a wave of discomfort washed over Jake. The risk was very real. The walls of the corporate fortress seemed to grow higher with each word spoken. The meeting began, and as he sat across the table from the client, Jake's pulse hammered in his ears. He felt acutely aware of every pair of eyes scanning him, probing his intentions with skepticism. Jake focused, elbow gently resting against the polished wood, his thoughts racing. Could he paint a portrait of collaboration instead of mere transaction? "Thank you for coming today," he started, feeling a surge of determination. "Today, we're not just going to discuss contracts. We want to understand your needs, each layer of your aspirations and worries." He observed the client, noting how their posture softened slightly. He continued, weaving in the narrative of partnership, focusing on powerful imagery drawn from both professional ambition and human connection. The anxiety of the past began to dissipate as Jake engaged, crafting a conversation infused with authenticity. Moments passed, flowing naturally as barriers crumbled. The client responded, recalling their own experiences, echoing Jake's sentiments with intrigue. "That's refreshing to hear. I've rarely encountered such an approach." Jake's heart raced with adrenaline. This was the moment he longed for. The energy in the room shifted. No longer were they three parties navigating concrete clauses but collaborators participating in our shared journey. As the meeting wound down, smiles blossomed, sincere hopes traded over the table. The power of connection resonated throughout, and with it came the promise of a new direction for Jake. Yet, as he walked away feeling triumphant, an unsettling anchor of uncertainty tugged at his gut. A nagging whisper urging him to prepare for the inevitable backlash from Max. Would his newfound approach stand solid against the grinding gears of a corporate environment? Back at the office, the walls felt like they might close in on him. He steeled himself for Max's response, knowing the confrontation between the old way and the new was imminent. Jake paused at the threshold of Max's office, inhaling deeply. Today would be a test, not just of his method, but of his resolve to be the change within a world that often resisted it. As he knocked, the weight of expectation hung heavy in the air. What would Max's response reveal about their future together, and about Jake himself? The moment of truth was about to unfold. Jake stood at the doorway, anxiety coiling tightly in his chest as he braced himself for the immediate confrontation that lay ahead. Each beat of his heart echoed the gravity of the moment. Today would mark a clear pivot, a decision to embrace a more authentic existence, where emotional investment could coexist alongside legal excellence. As he stepped inside Max's office, the atmosphere felt charged. Max regarded him with a mix of professionalism and undisguised skepticism, his arms crossed tightly against his chest. "Jake, we need to talk about your approach in that meeting," he began, the seriousness of his tone filtering through Jake like a focused beam. "Absolutely, I believe in what we discussed," Jake replied, his voice steadying as he gathered his thoughts. "Emphasizing trust and building a real partnership is crucial for client satisfaction, and it will have lasting benefits for our firm too." Max leaned back, an incredulous chuckle escaping his lips. "That's not how this industry operates, Jake. You cannot afford to lose sight of winning. Business is cutthroat." The unyielding defensiveness in Max's posture reignited the fear that Jake would be swept back towards the doctrine of ruthless legalese. It was a dance he was all too familiar with, one that had molded him for years. But now, in the stark light of self-awareness, obstacles transformed into opportunities. "Max," Jake interjected, a calmness spreading through him, "what if we could redefine winning? Instead of just closing deals, what if we released fresh energy into our relationships that sparks greater loyalty? We could differentiate ourselves in an industry rife with exchanges devoid of connection." Max's frown deepened, a battle within reflecting across his face. Jake pressed on, buoyed by the memory of innocent laughter and transformative joy that Lily had ignited within him. The law can be an instrument for positive change. What if we cultivated a method where compassion leads to client retention and satisfaction? That's the key to success. The moment lingered, heavy with tension. Jake anticipated backlash, yet also felt a wave of exhilarating fulfillment swelling in his conviction. After what felt like an eternity, Max's expression shifted slightly, a glimmer of contemplation dawning. "All right, I'll consider your approach," he said, albeit begrudgingly. "But you'd better have the figures ready to back it up next time." Jake's shoulders relaxed, a well-deserved breath releasing the pent-up pressure he had felt. The exchange was far from an endorsement, but it was progress, groundwork laid for professional evolution he longed for. He wasn't just a lawyer anymore, he was an advocate for a new way, merging the value of human connection with hard-won legal expertise. As he exited the office, a buoyancy coursed through him, fueled by a renewed sense of purpose. This decision would ripple beyond the confines of his workplace, empowering him in interactions outside the office as well. His heart raced with the realization he was carving out an identity marked by integrity rather than fear, embracing both layers of his person, a lawyer intertwined with a compassionate advocate. Days turned into weeks, cultivating a rhythm within Jake's work and life balance. He devoted weekends to baking with Lily, crafting each recipe alongside her, nurturing not only community connections but also the comprehensive pathway he envisioned. Their cookie initiative flourished, a monthly bake sale blossoming in the vicinity, with each event linked to charity, solidarity, engagement, and a heartfelt dedication to shared causes. While the clients in his legal practice began observing a transformation, swirling news donned the walls of his firm. Max's initial hesitance slowly unraveled, opening up to an organic partnership that churned with fresh ideas and authenticity. Then came the validation and invitation from a renowned legal publication to share his innovative approach to client relations and ethical negotiation strategies. Recognition of his growth solidified something deep within him: he wasn't alone. In the diner, a new metaphorical door had opened as word of mouth spread among locals about the delightful treats crafted with purpose. Children giggled, adults gathered, and laughter intermingled, inspired by lightness after Jake fostered what was once absent, a warming connection within their community. One sunny afternoon, spinning flour into fun beside Lily, Jake felt waves of fulfillment course through him. His heart echoed a lesson carved from countless moments: choices rooted in authenticity would undeniably lead toward fulfilled paths. The specter of self-doubt that once shadowed him morphed into a quiet ally, consistently reflective of his choices. Years later, as he stood on stage to speak at a national conference for legal professionals, the journey unfurled before him. He recounted the transformative effect of community baking, not just in his life, but in the lives he touched and upheld. It was here, in front of a captivated audience, that he could finally declare victory, not just over professional accolades or shifting norms but over the war within himself. His new ideology shone brightly, manifesting in each tale told. He had become a real advocate, not just for clients, but for the boundless interplay of connections that propelled life forward with meaning and purpose. In that closing moment, standing tall with contentment radiating through him, Jake savored the flavor of his achievement: a well-baked life emerging from the challenges once faced, solid confidence enveloping him, fostering an environment where other lawyers too could dare to reveal their human side. You need to subscribe now to this channel to catch our next exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every single one counts in spreading the word. Comment your thoughts and reactions about this satisfying conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who could benefit from the uplifting message of overcoming fears and creating meaningful connections. Don't wait even one more second to share.